of the NorCal SBDC Finance Center network. And I also have Ann Johnson-Stromberg, who is the Associate Director of Programs for the region of Northern California SBDC. Would you like to say a few words, Ann?
I'll just say that I'm the interim director for the San Mateo SBDC as well. So currently the San Mateo Service Center is hosted remotely by our SBDC lead center at Humboldt State. Our advisors continue to live and work in San Mateo County, and we have not disrupted service. In fact, we've been ramping up service since we took over because of the COVID crisis and the demand by San Mateo business owners. So we're here for you, and I'm very appreciative to Scott to be our loan expert guy. But if you, if your business or you know of a business that needs one-on-one assistance through the loan process, you are welcome to go online to sanmateosbdc.org and sign up for services. All of our services related to the COVID are free, and all of our counseling services through the SBDC program are always free. So thank you, Scott.
Well, thank you, Ann, and good afternoon, everyone. And thank you for taking time out of your day to meet with us and go over some of this most important information. As Ann mentioned, the SBDC, Small Business Development Centers, we are a no-cost one-on-one counseling service provided to all small businesses. And the reason why we're no cost is we're federally funded by the SBA, Small Business Administration. So it's your federal tax dollars at work. And we're here to provide this information to you. And as Cheryl mentioned, it's, this is a quick disclaimer that things are changing all the time. The information was correct when we put this together, but things are changing all the time. So we ask that you be patient with us. We do have the most updated information that we have at this time. And once we get new, we do update you and join other calls to update you. So looking at the slide here, there is the types of loans that are available today is we have the SBA direct loan. This is money directly from SBA, is known as the EDIL, which is Economic Industry Disaster Loan, and the advance, which we'll go over a little shortly. I will go over in a little bit. This is the direct link that you would apply for the SBA disaster loan if you have not already applied. It's gone through probably 20 renditions since it launched, and this is the final website to apply on. It's a very easy Google Doc 5-page form, and if you as a business owner are not sure how to fill it out and you need help walking through that, as Ann mentioned, we have SBDC advisors at no cost to you at the San Mateo, and Ann is managing that as we speak, so she is deploying the advisors to you and to your services or to your needs, not physically since we're not allowed to go anywhere right now, but like as far as Zoom or Skype or email or phone calls or any way that we can help you remotely. Then there's also the PPP loan that came out last week. It's the Payment Protection Program. PPP, we call it PPP because it's easier to say. That money comes directly from lenders, specific lenders that are 7A lenders, preferred lenders by SBA. Those loans are directly from the lenders, and they're guaranteed by SBA. So if you fail to pay it back, then SBA will cover that for the bank. Like I mentioned before, the SBA EDIL loan is money from SBA, and the PPP is money from lenders. In the state of California, there's also this sales tax deferment that I'll go over in a little bit, and then iBank under GoBiz of the Economic Development Office of the Governor's Office, GoBiz, they're also offering a microloan fund that is direct money that they're going to funnel through some local CDFIs so that they can get the money out to businesses as a direct fund. There is this thing called a SBA Bridge Express Loan. It's $25,000. This became in statute in 2017 that if there is a disaster, which there is, as we all know, a business owner can go to a bank that they bank with, and they could potentially provide them with a $25,000 bridge loan fairly quickly. We haven't found any lenders doing this, but there are lenders, they're set up to do it. They just haven't got really excited to do it. There's also this debt relief from SBA, where the SBA will pay the principal and interest of current SBA 7A loans for the period of 6 months, and then also any new loans for 6 months. So the economic injury disaster loan, also known as the EDIL, in theory, you could apply for about 6 months worth of working capital. When you fill out the application, they ask you for how much you want to apply for. They ask you for your annual sales, and they ask you for your annual cost of goods. So they would just take your sales minus your COGS, cost of goods, and that would kind of tell them how much money it takes to operate your business on 1 month. And then they, for the year, they would divide it by 12, figure it out for 1 month, and then they would potentially times that by, at the max, 6 months, but more likely between like 3 and 6 months, and that's how much they would potentially approve you for. This is eligible for pretty much any entity type, except for the ones that are not federally approved, like cannabis and risque businesses and gambling. But anything else, like a pass-through, if you're a landlord of a commercial building and you have tenants and you're struggling to make this time work, you qualify for now for an SBA loan when you normally wouldn't. People that run Airbnbs out of their home or their second home, they qualify as long as they file Schedule C. People that do Uber, Lyft, real estate agents, hairstylists, all those 1099 employees or contractors, they qualify to apply for the EDIL loan, as long as you file it on the Schedule C as a sole proprietor. Nonprofits, 501c3s, can apply up to 750 employees, but every other entity is maxed at 500 employees. There's some small ag and co-ops that qualify. And the advance, so when you go on and apply now in the same application, there's this advance that shows up on the 4th page, and you click this little box that's saying, I would like to qualify for up to $10,000 of an advance. And that money, once you get it, is forgivable, meaning you don't have to pay it back. It takes about 2 to 3 weeks from the time that you apply to get the advance, and it takes about another 2 to 3 weeks, maybe 4 weeks, to get the extra money that you applied for. So the payment protection program, this came out Friday. It came out for everyone except for 1099, sole proprietors, and other individuals that take draws instead of get a paycheck. That information and legislation comes out Friday, 2 days from today. So there is a brand new application for the PPP. It launched last Friday, and from last Friday till today, there's been 3 renditions of the application. We have the current application, so we can get that out to you as small business owners in the San Mateo area, and has that with the consultants out there. If you're looking for local lenders, you can go to sba.gov, Paycheck protection, and press find.
Should we get off this and get back on?
You can enter the zip code, and then you can find lenders in your area.
We just talked about a $10,000 free thing.
Oh, somebody is Brett. So if you are having trouble as a business owner, like the big bank that you bank at, maybe the top 10 big banks like Wells, BofA, Chase, if they told you that they're maxed out and they can't lend to you anymore, there are other options, like this company called Lendistry, but their max is $250,000. That's per SBA, that's their max. We just got a lot of this information this morning, so we can distribute it to you through Ann or through Cheryl or in the chat. But also Smart Biz Loans is if you apply, they're an aggregator, meaning they have a list of, let's say, 100 SBA 7A lenders in the state of California, and you apply, they run your credit, and then they match you up with the best one local to you. It's really cool. This is what you can apply for the PPP. It's 2.5 times the monthly payroll cost, which is in parentheses here. That's everything. Salaries, compensations, insurance, sick, medical leave, all that stuff. Plus any rent, mortgage payments, if you lease, rent, utilities, and then any interest debt payments. So you add all that up for 1 month, you times it by 2.5, and that's what you can qualify up to $10 million for the PPP. This is a very quick comparison chart. If you were to look from the left to the right, the PPP goes up to 10 million. It's a 1% APR 2-year fixed note. Potentially the first 2 months of your expenditures can be forgiven if you're approved. There's some verbiage with that. It's case by case. And there's no payments for the first 6 months. That's a triple P. On the right, the EDIL, the max is $2 million currently. It could go up or down anytime. The terms is 3.75% for 30 years. It's not forgivable, but there's a deferment for 11 months. So it's a pretty cool chart here. And then I think this is my last slide. So we go to the other speakers. But with this slide, this is saying that in the state of California, there's some awesome things that are happening at the state level and local level that you may know for your local communities. But on a statewide level, California iBank is an industrial bank. It's housed at the Governor's Office of Economic Development under GoBiz. And they do what's called a state guarantee program. So SBA is federal. They guarantee loans like the triple P and other loans if you're going to buy a building or a large piece of equipment or just some working capital to buy a business or grow. SBA backs loans for lenders so that if you fail to pay it back, it's like an insurance risk that they'll cover the bank. Well, iBank is a state guarantee. So if you fail to pay it back, the state will kind of replenish that for the lender and then act as an insurance risk blanket on the back end. So Governor Newsom launched this $50 million loan fund that is going to be able to be broken up into a max of $50,000 per business owner that applies. It's like a microloan. And what they're doing is they're working with 2 local CDFIs, one in NorCal, one in SoCal, the state of California, and they're administering these loans. These loans have been talked about, and they have been, I guess, essentially broken up and kind of like organized, and that they're building the infrastructure as we speak. There's a terminology that we use in NorCal. We use it a lot. It's that we're building the airplane as we fly it. So the state of California is also doing that right now. They came out last week or this morning or this Monday and they launched this, but they haven't deployed any capital yet. So still working it. Also, just like the SBA is doing 100% guarantee on the triple P, there's these state guarantee loans for disaster that are up to $1 million at a 95% guarantee. That all that means is that the state is going to guarantee that the lender deploys this money. This is disaster money. So if you're in a disaster, it's up to $1 million at 95% guarantee. For the state guarantee, it's a 30-year loan. Their interest rate is 4.25%. It's a little bit higher. It's not forgiven, but there's an interest deferment for about 6 to 12 months. It's a pretty cool program, but it's locally here. So there's local lenders that we work with that will do these loans. And then there's a sales tax deferral in the state of California, allowing small businesses to defer payment of sales and use taxes of up to $50,000 up to 12 months. And I know we're not going to go into Q&A right now, but we're going to go to the other speakers. But again, I wanted to thank you for your time, and thanks for letting me kind of walk through some of the newest, most updated information that we have at SBDC, as it is changing daily. But as Ann mentioned, we are here for you, and we're here to answer your questions. We're here for you at no cost, and we're here to help you put your financials together, and we're here to help you apply for these loans and to know which loans are available to you so that you can get money in your hands, pay your employees, and hopefully stay in business. So thank you very much. And I'll stay on for Q&A.
Thank you, Scott. Do we have someone from Community Bank of the Bay?
Hi, Cheryl. This is Kristin. I believe Mark is also on the line.
Okay. So do you want to talk about what you've been doing?
Absolutely. Okay. So the 7A SBA lenders are able to help their clients with the SBA Triple P program. And there's been a lot of misinformation and confusion, and it's a very difficult situation. And my heart goes out to everyone that has been in the system and having trouble. So I can only speak to our experience at Community Bank of the Bay. Mark, if you're there, if you want to jump in. I guess he's not on the line. Okay, so basically, the best thing to do is to go to a bank that you know and ask them if they're participating. And the reason that's important is because banks have to verify that you're a legitimate business through a process that we do generally when you open a new account. There's a lot of background checks. We use several different databases to verify that you're a legitimate business, and we're required to do that. So that's why it's easier if you go to a bank that knows you. Unfortunately, what's happened to a lot of people is that the larger banks are having some issues with being able to service everyone. So, Community Bank of the Bay, again, is helping our clients, and we soon will be able to help some new clients as well, but it's a little slower for us to do that because we have to go through the process of verifying you. But basically, one of the main points of confusion is that people have been filling out paper applications. Either their banks have given them the applications or they found the applications online. And that's great because it does prepare you for the process, but you absolutely have to be given a portal or a link to the SBA in order to apply. And
yeah,
so,
if I might just touch base, just to follow up on what Kristen's saying to kind of clarify how it works, like how you get the money. Scott did a good job of giving a great factual overview of the PPP program, but I thought I might just get some insights on where the rubber meets the road. So there is a form that one can get at the SBA site. It's got it right here, but it's just this PPP application form. And so what banks are doing is they're basically building out electronic portals where applicants get that, download this form, and then what it does from there is it goes back to the bank, and then the bank says, thank you very much for applying. We're going to send you a second link where you upload certain data so that the bank can look through the data to see if all the terms and provisions of the PPP program that Scott alluded to are satisfied. And once the bank determines that, our bank or any bank, then that electronic file is sent onto the SBA through something that you may or may not have read about called eTrans. So what we're coaching people that have applied is try to be patient, because we're getting kind of two types of applicant. We're getting people that see it, their operations are very simple, and they upload what we call formation documents. That's articles of incorporation, bylaws, etc., along with tax ID numbers, plus some financial information that backs up the 2-ish months worth of what I'll just call eligible expenses. And we can go through eligible expenses. Scott and I can take you through that in the Q&A. But we also have applicants who are kind of unloading their electronic file on us. So they're uploading reams of information, and we have to call through there to try to figure out, is this a pass, is this a go? And then we have to go back to applicants, and say, okay, your application is almost done, but you left out this or that. So that kind of gives you a sense of the why it's taking so long. Also, try to understand that we were not staffed up for the surge of applications for this, for the swarm of applicants that we're getting, and we're dealing with them as best we can. Just kind of high level, I would say that yes, it's true that I think it's $349 billion has been set aside as available under the CARES Act for the Paycheck Protection Program, and it's when it gets used up, it's used up, and so applicants will be held there. I do believe politically that people will be calling up their woman, man, and saying, hey, you know, I didn't get my fair share, and they'll probably legislate an add-on bucket of money to take care of all those who were left out in the first set of applications that went through. The legislation calls for this program to be open through June 30. So as Scott was pointing out, you know, once you get the money, there's no payments due for 6 months, and then all sums come due 2 years after you execute the note. I've got all sorts of answers to details of what's eligible, what's not, but I thought, well, this is probably what's not on any website, is to, you know, how the banks are actually doing the processing. So that's some insights there, and I'll open it to questions now or wait till the end.
Okay, on the chat, we have a question from Peter. Barakis.
So the answer for Peter's question regarding the 1099 included in the triple P, you know, that is currently we're being told that new legislation is coming out on Friday for that, for sole proprietors that take draws and 1099 contractors, for them to somehow apply for the triple P, since they don't receive W-2s. But Mark might have more information on that.
Yeah, no, Scott, what I was reading is that 1099 and I thought that was like an April 10th. There was the first set of applicants being the defined small business owners, was that they were eligible to submit on April 3rd, and then April 10th, sole props and private contractors. I believe it's
yeah. So April 10th. So like in 2 days from now, there's supposed to be new legislation that does a triple P really only launched like really for applications to go talk to bankers and lenders last Friday the 3rd for most all entities except for sole proprietors and 1099 contractors, which should launch this Friday.
I wanted to say something I left out of my previous overview. So I know there's a lot of frustration out there as to, you know, my bank has let me down and they're not processing the application, or their portal's closed, etc. The banks have every incentive to get this done because they are getting paid. So as Scott, I believe, may have mentioned, there are no fees. Traditionally, there are fees associated with any SBA loan, but there are none associated with the PPP. And the interest rate, as Scott mentioned, I believe it's very generous at 1%. And in fact, payments deferred for 6 months. But lenders are getting paid. I'm just going to tell you guys exactly how we're going to be paid, so you'll know. So the banks get 5% of any loan up to $350, down to 3% from $350 to $2 million, and 1% for loans originated over $2 million. So the banks are getting paid for this. So they do have an incentive to get this right.
Okay, ready for the next question? It's from Alareza. Our restaurant is under construction due to open in June. Just ran the first payroll for prep pending work. What can we qualify for? PPP, EDIL. We have no sales and operation expenses yet.
So that's unfortunately that's a very tricky case, because the triple P says that you would have had opened before February 15th. And then the EDIL says you should have opened before January 31st. But I think Actually, I don't really know which one has more restrictions on brand new startups like this. We're told from SBA that we're not supposed to discourage anybody from applying. I know that may or may not give someone false hopes, but we're told not to discourage them from applying. Obviously, a startup is really hard to show historical numbers because you don't have any. But there may be other loans for this company outside of the PPP and the EDIL, like the direct microloan fund I spoke about, and then possibly something else that is going to be created next week that we don't even know about yet.
Hey, Pauline, could you repeat the question? Sorry, I couldn't find the message in the chat box.
Oh, the question was that his restaurant is currently under construction. It's supposed to open in June. So they haven't had any pay, they ran their payroll for prep work, but no business, no sales and operational expenses yet. So
Right.
it's a true startup position right now.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, let's see here. So if they're building out the restaurant, just off the top of my head, some potential eligible expenses that I see. You got the mortgage cost on the underlying loan, if any, and you have rent to the landlord because they may be already in the building paying rent to a landlord and building out the tenant improvements. So you've got that as a potential eligible. I do agree with Scott. I don't see where, in the spirit of the legislation, if this loan is to defend and keep people employed, I don't see how the SBA would fund monies for payroll that doesn't yet exist, because there were no jobs yet in the first place. But I do see, as Scott points out, I do see some potential to recoup some operating costs because, and utilities, there's going to be some utilities associated with the restaurant, even though not full, just, some general, electrical and water and whatnot. So utilities would be something that would be certainly eligible to the extent that they've had those.
There's also an argument to be made that the business, although it hasn't opened to the public, because they have already actively, like I'm assuming that perhaps you have gotten a loan for the build out, or the fact that you're funding the build out, those contractors that you're paying, those are actual expenses. And according to the SBA definition of being in business, once you acquire debt, you are in business. So there's some wiggle room there, and I would think that maybe that would be one that you should work with the SBDC directly on.
Okay, thank you. Our next question is from Dr. Lorraine. And where did it pop? She says, on the form under payroll amount, can we include rent, insurance, utilities?
So you can, for the PPP, you can. There's only 4 things you can really include. You can include rent, utilities, which is telephone, internet, stuff like that, lights, and then you can also include payroll, which I went over, and then you can include any interest debt payments that you make. So if you have monthly debt payments for cars or vehicles under your business or building or other types of large equipment, or maybe you took out a fintech loan, a loan on the internet that you pay $2,000 a month in interest, you could take your monthly debt payments and add that to your monthly payments, and then times it by 2.5. So all that could be included in the PPP.
Okay, question from Barbara. How is it treated if a new business owner is not taking a draw or salary but has rent, etc.? Can they qualify for the PPP?
So yeah, again, so as Mark mentioned, you just remember the acronym RUPI, RUPI. For the PPP, you can qualify for rent, utilities, and interest debt payments. The P is payroll, but if you don't have any payroll, then yes, you can apply for the others, the rent, utilities, and interest.
Okay, great, thank you. We have a note from Vivian. Did you see that one?
Yeah, it says, can you mention that if you apply for both loans, you cannot use the money for the same expenses and what may potentially overlap? So yeah, so the triple P, it's, you know, this is a funny question because it's you know, you could do it probably, you could probably apply and break down the calculations 10 or 15, maybe 20 different ways. But you can apply for both loans. It's okay. You just can't apply for both loans for the same purpose. So if you apply for payroll costs on the PPP, then you can't apply for payroll costs on the EDIL. But the when it's really weird when you apply for the triple P, if you fill out the regular form that Mark was talking about, which was distributed by the Treasury and it's online, you can find it. You know, when they say when you start doing that and you apply for the triple P, you can actually put an amount that you want. But when you apply for the EDIL, there is no spot to put how much you want. So if you were to take the rent, utilities, payroll, and interest expense and put it to the triple P, and then take all your other operating expenses, also known as working capital, the money that it takes to run and operate your business, you're to take all that and then minus what you applied for the triple P, and then take that number on a monthly basis, technically times it by 3 to 6. That would tell you what you would qualify for the EDIL.
Okay, next question. As a sole proprietor in February, about 17,000 in venture and the invoices are due April, May. How can I get help to pay these invoices coming up due? I've been closed for 25 days because they're a non-essential business.
So one thing you have to really know is that the EDIL is not for future. EDIL has nothing to do with future loss of rents if you're a landlord, or future loss of revenue. Has everything to do with the last 3 to 6 months of working capital. So if you're a sole proprietor, it doesn't actually really matter about your entity within this question, but if you apply for $17,000 of, you know, accounts payable, you bought some stuff and you owe, you're not going to be able to get a loan to pay this. You are going to be able to get a loan potentially to pay for your last 3 to 6 months of working capital, and that would be the EDIL. And then you could apply for that and then potentially pay accounts payable with that money. For the EDIL, you can pay the money, you can use it for accounts payable, and then for the PPP, you can't really use it for accounts payable. So in your case, you qualify for an EDIL, and I would apply for an EDIL as soon as possible because it's first come, first serve.
I would just throw in, and this is a little bit related to that question, I believe, and we're getting a lot of queries about seasonality. So the way that that's treated is there's a provision for looking back. So what you can do is say, well, gee, I didn't have any payroll because I'm really not open on the summer business or what have you. So there's a provision where you can look back from February of 2019 through June of 2019. So they're trying to make allowances for seasonal businesses.
Here's a question from Siraj Sanchetti. We applied for the EIDL and got confirmation on March 30th. We haven't heard from them yet. Do you know how long it's taking? Can we run through the PPP paperwork with you to make sure we are fully prepared? Would like to fit the I and cross the T.
So if you applied on March 30th, that's if you applied on March 30th, it's the most updated application link, so you're okay. Once you apply, you get this number. It starts with a 3. That's your loan number, and then you just need to make sure you check all your spam email and regular email. And if you still haven't received anything from SBA, then it's okay. They still have your application. Obviously, they're being inundated just like lenders are, like Mark mentioned. So it's okay. You just need to wait. And how long do you have to wait? Well, that has everything to do with SBA, like how long you're gonna wait, since they're the ones administering the EDIL loans. It could be another 2-3 weeks before anybody hears anything. Then potentially it could go to the 4th week. But there is a Office of Disaster Assistance phone number that you can call. You do have to, it is 24/7, so I recommend maybe you call when nobody else is, like Saturday and Sunday. You can get through very easily, and they will have a lot of the answers that you're looking for. A lot more than I can answer or anybody else on this phone call can answer.
Okay, this refers back to the question about the $17,000. He said it was $17,000 in inventory. Does that make a difference to your answer?
Not really. It's Mark answered it really well as far as his options within that. The EDIL is used for accounts payable, but the PPP is not really. So it doesn't really matter what you really used it for.
Okay.
One thing I might say about just kind of greasing the skids, as it were, one of the things that we're seeing people do, and I would pass this advice along, the payroll is obviously the big part of RUPI. I like Scott's acronym for the eligible expenses, but getting the payroll calculation right can be a little bit cumbersome when you read through again and again how they define it. If you have what's known as a 945, ask your bookkeeper, your controller, CFO, or your CPA for what's known as a 945. That is the document with which payroll providers prepare, and you can get that document from them. You submit that 945 document along with various other information that's required in connection with the PPP application. You will be well served.
A question about what if you're paying employees and independent contractors? Can you include payments to contractors in the PPP?
I don't think you can until Friday, but maybe Mark has something else.
Yeah, I think they're on. So yeah, I mean, the government's trying not to double count here, so they can apply. Actually, I'm sorry, the answer is no. So they're excluded because they can come in through the PPP individually on their own.
Okay, next question from Roger. PPP can cover payroll for my employees, rent, utilities. Can PPP or EDIL cover lost Schedule C income to the owner, business organized as a sole proprietor?
No, the EDIL is not. So the EDIL is not used for any future loss of revenue, and it can't be used to pay off any debt as a lump sum, and it can't be used for expansion. The PPP can also not be used for loss of revenue and loss of sales. Can't be used for expansion. Just used for payroll. So if you had to let people go over the last 2 to 4 weeks, you could essentially hire them back and then use PPP to pay them for the next 2.5 months. But you can't use EDIL or PPP for loss of sales.
How much time do you generally allot to an initial consultation with business owners from the SBDC?
So can I answer this really quick, Scott?
Yeah, go ahead.
So when somebody goes to our website and applies for service, it takes just a couple of minutes. We're asking just some basic business questions in order to get enough needed to have that initial conversation. That conversation with somebody doing an intake interview is taking right now 15 minutes at the most. And then after that initial conversation, we determine whether or not we can actually help the business. And if we can, we would assign them to an advisor. We would get an advisor to reach out to them within 2 business days generally. Sometimes it can take a little bit longer depending on how many people are waiting in the queue. But once you start working one-on-one with a business advisor, you know, they're usually hour-long appointments or less. In particular, there's a lot of back and forth, giving them instructions to fill out forms, what they can do, what they can't do. And so there may be multiple conversations over time. It just kind of depends on what their needs are. But that works whether they come through San Mateo or they work with another service center throughout our NorCal network. It's a similar process.
Okay, thank you, Anne. From Michael Glazer, I heard that there may be a loan that is forgiven if I retain employees and make no changes. Question mark?
Yes.
Yeah,
And the answer is yes. That's the essence of the PPP loan program. And so the way it works is that if you do use the loan proceeds that you get for the eligible expenses that you apply for, I believe right now what they're saying is 100% of the loan proceeds that you allocated to payroll and as it's defined, including sick leave, all benefits, et cetera, plus up to 25% of the non-payroll items within the loan amount.
Okay, from Bahar Tulu, she's saying it should be the 941, not the 945. There is still a
Yes,
lot
you are
confusion.
correct. Yes, the 941.
Yeah. Okay. Let's see. Comment from John Kavarian again. On the application, they ask for gross revenue. Is that gross receipts or sales, or is it gross profit?
You want to, I'm assuming you're trying to size up the organization. Yeah, you want to use gross revenues, absolutely.
Okay. Let's see, what's Amy saying? It's a follow-up about, I think, the contractors. She said, does it make sense if I'm paying independent contractors and continue to pay them the same, why would they be able to go and get additional money on their own?
Because they're eligible under the PPP to apply for a loan.
Okay. From Juan, he says, define forgiven, please.
Forgiven, right. So yes, the way that works is let's say that there's $100,000 loan and $75,000 of that is determined to be 2.5 times the applicant's payroll. When the loan comes due, you submit information sufficient to the SBA, actually to the bank, and the bank is authorized to forgive $75,000 of that $100,000 loan, plus a percentage to be determined on what I'll just call the non-payroll expenses. I will say, not that anyone's thinking about this right now, but when you forgive debt right now under the IRS rules, that's taxable income. So just a heads up on that for you guys that watch your IRS obligations. So, whatever your tax rate is, you might do some penciling through the math on whatever the payroll portion of your loan might be, and then multiply your tax rate by that amount, and that would be the taxes that would be due should you apply to have a portion of the PPP loan forgiven.
Okay, from Saley Gusula, she says, since 940, 941 are not available for Q1 2020 yet, is it acceptable to report on January through December 2019 instead of March 1, 2019 to February 29th, 2020. It seems that we would get the data much easier for closed periods.
Yeah, that's true. So you could you can supply the 941s for all of 2019. It doesn't have to be most current quarter, because when they first originally launched the Triple P, the first quarter was barely over. It was like 3 days over. So they're expecting the 941s for all of 2019 and the W2s for all of 2019.
Yeah, we had a client, just to elaborate on what Scott was saying, we had a client that actually was looking at their payroll, and it's a little bit up and down. A lot of people, as you guys can identify with, had left because of the cost of living and rehiring. And so they submitted 4 quarters worth of 941s, an average. So in other words, they're applying for a little bit higher and making the argument that their average payroll is higher.
Okay, from Jan Brown, does PPP loans also cover things such as payroll taxes? It jumped. Workers' compensation, etc.
I'll let Scott answer this. My response on payroll taxes is no, and workers' comp, yes.
Yeah, that's what my intel says. Yeah, it's no taxes, but all insurance premiums, whether it be workers' comp, sick, paid, leave, all that stuff is covered, but no taxes.
Okay, from Barbara. So are you saying that the borrower can include the total of both the monthly payroll income and the monthly rent and other expenses together and then multiply by 2.5 to determine the loan amount?
Yes.
Oh,
So it's whatever rupees is. So it's rent, and that could be either rent, lease, could be a mortgage payment if you own your building. Utilities, which is telephone, internet, lights, all that stuff for utilities. Payroll, all the costs we talked about on the slide, and then any interest debt payments. You take all that monthly and times by 2.5, and that's what you qualify.
Great, she had the right formula. Any other questions?
I was going to mention that I had actually heard that the PPP forgiven loan was not going to be taxable income.
Yeah, I think I'm hoping that that's the case, but what we're advising people is you ought to assume that it is, I mean, I think that is probably a topic that's being discussed, but hasn't been legislated. So
we actually found it in the somewhere in the SBA information. So I'll get back to you with that.
Great.
Okay, when you mention insurance, does that cover business insurance?
As part of, go ahead, Scott.
Just for the Triple P, it's all payroll stuff, all payroll insurance, medical leave, sick paid, insurance payments on a monthly basis is part of operating capital and operating expenses, working capital, but that's only under the EDIL. Business insurance is under the EDIL. Payroll insurance is under the PPP.
I was just going to mention, Cheryl, if you would like, I can share the flyer about the Pivot Your Restaurant webinar series.
I would love that. That'd be great.
Okay. Can everybody see my screen? Can you see that?
A little hard to see. I wonder if you could scan it to me, Anne.
I emailed it to you.
Okay, all right. Yeah, we'll get it out to our membership.
Is that any better?
Actually, it's better. So
Okay.
It starts on the 20th.
Yeah,
the first one.
Yeah, so it'll be over the period of 3 weeks, Monday, April 20th, Monday, April 27th, and then Monday, May 4th. And this is a Pivot Your Restaurant series. So these are for, this could be included for that individual who was a startup who's looking to figure out how to make money in this interim period. But the first one is based on from restaurant to community kitchen. It's a Bay Area restaurateur solution to keeping all of her staff employed while providing free meals to the community through donations from customers. Another one, or the number 2 one, is the cloud kitchen model, a turnkey solution for delivery only kitchen spaces. And then number 3, that's on the virtual tasting room and how wineries are thriving, utilizing technology to do virtual tastings, tasting events and educational series. So all of these are free through the SBDC, and definitely would encourage people to register before they fill up. These ones will probably fill up quite quickly.
Okay,
I'm happy
great.
to email it. I've already emailed it to Pauline and Cheryl. So if you guys want to send it to everybody who is on the call.
Yeah, I could do that. And then Jennifer Chen, did you want to say something?
Hi, sorry, I had to unmute myself. Hi, so I am the Economic Development Manager for the City of San Mateo, and I just wanted to tell everyone, if you haven't been on the city's website, we have a specific page related to COVID relief options, programs and options for our business community. If you go to our main website, and you look up resources for businesses, and find a page where you'll get a link to the SBDC. You'll get information on all the SBA programs, and we also have the state programs that Scott also mentioned. We're diligently trying to update that site so that we have all the updated information. For example, Facebook just announced that they're making grants locally to our small businesses, and we just put that up today. So I also have it in the chat group, that you can find the link right there, but I know there's people on the phone, so I just suggest if you go to our main city website, citysanmateo.org, and you hit on the COVID page, there's a link on the sidebar that says a page for businesses and employees.
Okay, great. Thank you. One last thing popped in. For an LLC, if owners are taking a draw and having Schedule K, which loan can cover that? Would PPP cover that?
Owners taking a draw.
So can you repeat the question?
It says for an LLC, if owners are taking a draw and having Schedule K, which loan can cover that? Would PPP cover it?
Hey guys, this is Silas with Sunshine Pro Accounting and Tax. I'll jump in. This will be included in what is going to be pushed out on the 10th. So it's just as a sole proprietor owner who takes draws from the LLC will be treated the same way. So the loan program that's being pushed out by the SBA on the 10th will be what you will apply for from a PPP perspective. And you'll still be eligible for the disaster loan as well.
Thank you, Silas.
Great. So that's all the questions, Cheryl, that you want to wrap up?
Yes. So I just want to thank everyone for attending today. We plan on doing more of these bi-weekly. We have a very interesting program tomorrow at 10 a.m. and it is hosted by De La Torre Associates Insurance Services, and Anya is an expert on the CARES Act, which is another hot topic right now while we're in the midst of the COVID. She's going to talk about COVID-19. What is a person to do? And then next week we have a business essentials with Rick Rabin, who's written several books. He's going to talk about how do you shelter your money while you're sheltering in place? And then we hope that next week we can also host another town hall meeting and maybe get more in depth into the EDIL loan program. So with that, thank you very much. Have a great day, and I miss seeing all of you in person. I can't wait to get back. I mean, chamber people like to be around other people. It's very social. So this has been very hard on me. But anyway, we will see you soon, and just stay safe.
Thank you, Cheryl.
All right.
Awesome.
Thanks.
Bye-bye.
Thank
Thank
you.
Thank you.
Everyone.